So you may have been wondering, has she given up on YouTube? So you may remember that I lost my studio back in May. So since June, which I think was around the last time I posted, I had a lot of things happen. Life got in the way, and that's going to happen sometimes, and we have to sort of readjust. Things started to get in the way really big time. First of all, I hurt myself. Had to recover for a couple of weeks. I just hurt my knee a little bit, not a big deal, but it made it difficult to set up my art studio, my temporary art studio here in the apartment. So then in July, my mother fell. Sometimes you just have to put the people you love first, and that's what I had to do. So since July, it's all been about taking care of Mom. I'm sorry to say that a few weeks ago, my mom did pass away. A very long struggle. She worked very hard to get back on her feet in rehab. It just wasn't meant to be. She was 94 years old. Pneumonia took hold of her, and it was not good. So please stay tuned to the end of this video to see a special tribute to her. Okay, so how I kept my sanity and my creativity going was using an iPad and Procreate. So what is Procreate? Procreate is this app that you can get on your iPad that is a very powerful creative tool. It has all sorts of brushes and like Photoshop type filters and things that you can do, and you can easily move things around and eliminate backgrounds and create alpha masks and layer masks and put different colors on different layers and play around and then delete a layer if you don't like it. I mean, it's very, very powerful. Okay, so you have to have a fairly newer iPad, not one from 5-6 years ago, and it has to have pencil capabilities. So you also have to have an Apple Pencil. It doesn't really work too good with your finger. The pencil really gets in there and does fine lines, and you could really get in there to shade and do all sorts of things. Best part of Procreate and the iPad is that you can take it with you anywhere. So those long hours in the hospital, those long hours in rehab, sometimes she's napping and not talking, so I'm a little bored. Out comes the iPad and I'm doodling away and I'm experimenting and I'm learning more and I'm trying out new brushes and I'm learning how to create brushes and I'm doing some abstracts and trying to learn how to do a flower. I mean, I was just trying everything just to sort of see what looks good on the Procreate, because I'm a beginner and the only way you get better at something is to do it again and again and again. The perfect thing about Procreate was once it's installed, you don't need Wi-Fi. It saves everything right on your drive, and the Wi-Fi at the rehab was just horrendous. I could never ever connect to it. So this was how I spent my time. Mostly, I was creating backgrounds for future NFTs that I'm currently working on now. Another thing that I love to do with Procreate is create designs, black and white, that I can then cut stencils on my Cricut. For that alone, it was worth it, because I've made many stencils with my Cricut. So I'm sure you can identify with this. Creative people need to stay creative, or they start to get a little, I don't know, depressed. And I was already in a depressing situation. The last thing I needed was to also start feeling sorry for myself because I can't be creative. So this saved me. It like kept my creative sanity going. So I really highly recommend Procreate. So my tiny studio here in my living room is now set up, and for the last couple of weeks I've been working on just some abstract things on watercolor paper, just to sort of, I don't know, wake up my creativity in the physical paint world. And I've posted some shorts, so go take a look. All I did was bring over some art supplies and my main taboret, which is quite large and holds a lot of stuff. And I have my easel and my canvas ready to go. I'm very soon going to be starting a 30 by 30, And I'm going to shoot the process all along the way. It'll take a couple of months, but I will post a video on that when I'm finished. And in the meantime, I will get back on track with both my life, my creativity, and this YouTube channel. So please subscribe and comment and like and all of that. Help me get to the next level. I'd really appreciate it. So, this is the hard part, talking about Mom. She was my biggest supporter. Biggest supporter. Started out when I was a teenager. You know, everybody else is working at McDonald's and those kinds of jobs. I got to work with my mother. She was a typesetter. Back before computers and all of that, advertising agencies, publishers had to hire typesetting companies to type up all the artwork, you know, Justified or headlines, all of that. And they had to hire a company to do that. And sometimes that company pasted up the ad or the magazine, the, you know, book, whatever it was. So my mother had become very good at not only typesetting with various typesetting machines over the years, but also doing her own pay stubs. And because I was creative, I was an artist already, she brought me in as a part-timer in the summer months and on holidays and things like that, and taught me how to do pay stubs. I even learned how to do a little typesetting. She really encouraged me to go to art college. It was, you know, pushed me actually, because I think I wanted to be a dancer at that time. But she was like, no, go to art college. That's really what you should do. If you still want to be a dancer after that, you could be a dancer. But she really pushed me to go to art college. And the idea was that I was going to be an illustrator. Little did we know that I was going to be a painter. But anyway, that's all comes from her influence. Her family is an extremely creative family. She was one of 9 children, and every single one of them was a creative of some kind. Musician, singer, painters. They dabbled in photography. My brother's a photographer. I have so many cousins that paint. It's just in our family, for sure. And that all, my mother sang when she was younger. And there were a lot of singers from South Philly, let's face it. Back in the 50s and 60s, a lot of the top 100 on the Billboard were from South Philly. So I thought growing up in South Philly that you grew up to be famous. That's what I thought. I thought everybody grew up to be famous. And my mother, she was into movies, loved old movies, and encouraged me when I came home from school to watch old movies. She would circle it on the paper what days of the week the movies that I should be watching were going to be on. So after college and I moved to New York City, my first jobs in New York were, of course, pay stubs. Thank God she taught me how to do pay stubs. Pay stubs and mechanicals, we called them. They didn't have computers. Artwork was all done sort of very manual process. I ended up working eventually at an ad agency because of my pay stub skills. And within that ad agency, they trained me to be a commercial artist, an art director, doing photo shoots, fashion, styling, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I did for at least 20 years, I think. I did fashion advertising, lots of fun. And my mother was the one who started all of that. And I had a mentor at the time, Jane Trahey, and Jane just loved my mother. She just thought she was ahead of her time. Her generation did not do what my mother was doing. She had a career. And Jane really admired that. For a woman who did not go to college, she made a life for herself in the commercial world. So of course, being Italian, I identify food with my mother. She made everything from scratch. Like, we didn't buy ravioli and then put sauce on it. She made the sauce from scratch. We call it gravy. It's got meatballs in there and sausage and all that stuff. Ravioli from scratch. As a little girl, I was helping my mother assemble the ravioli. And to this day, I still make ravioli. So one of the things I remember in high school, She was Typesetting Prevention magazine. And she would come home and start throwing things away out of the cabinets because they had certain ingredients that she read about while she was typesetting. So she taught me how to read labels and to really pay attention to what we put in our bodies. And the two of us even fasted together once. We went to a spa outside of New York City, and we fasted for a week. Like, who does that with their mother? But that's the kind of mother she was. And because of that type of thinking and open-mindedness, she was just a special person. And because of all of that, I am who I am. So all because of her, I have a great work ethic. I'm a creative person who is creative in every aspect of my life, and also my confidence. So I owe all of that to her. And I thank you for staying till the end.